Welcome to the Low Carb MD Podcast. No one is beyond help. No one is beyond hope. Nothing said on the Low Carb MD Podcast is medical advice. Please consult your own doctor before making any lifestyle changes.
Welcome to the Low Carb MD Podcast. I have an amazing returning guest here. I've had the pleasure of working with him for the past 5 years. And actually, 10 years ago, when I started interacting more on social media with regards to my diet, I followed him. I was learning from him. And he helped me along the way. You may not know it, but he helped me along the way, along with a great community in the low carb community, helping me lose 150 pounds. And in 2017, when I started doing remote telemedicine and then growing and opening the practice in 2018, soon thereafter, I asked him to come on as a coach. And today we have Brian Wiley, who's a certified health coach, a certified personal trainer. We've had the pleasure, I think it's been 5 years, although it could be long, working together. I know his wife, I know his kids, and he's just an amazing person and an amazing coach. We've probably helped together, 300, 400 people together. Maybe certainly over 1,000 people in the whole practice, but we've worked together on certainly multiple hundred people, helping them reclaim health. And we've had some huge wins, and life's not without losses.
Right.
So I'm excited to have Brian Wiley back on the podcast. I'm excited to talk about some things coming up. And I'm just going to promo it ahead of time, and we'll talk about it in the end. He is the OG of low carb. If you are listening to this and you've struggled to get started, you need help with the basics, you know somebody who just needs to get going, his 4-week class course, which is on the Toward Health app, on our app, it is amazing. And not only is it amazing, I think there's over 100 people slated for the next one, around 100 people slated for the next one. It is a free course. So you come in, you get 1-hour lectures. It's also with Dr. Laura Buchanan, and it's completely free, no strings attached. And you're getting amazing insight. And you get to know people that are on the same journey as you. So this is just an absolutely amazing resource, and I'll put it in there. And I think it's been 2 years, Brian, you've been doing that course, or am I wrong there? Is my timing off on that?
No, I think it's actually 2 years to the date. So I think it's probably about the anniversary.
Yeah. So it's been 2 years. So this is a highly refined course. So it's an intro to low carb course. And it'll be in the month of September. If you have questions, just go on the app and ask us, and we'll get it to you. Brian, I gotta say, thank you for taking a chance with me 5 years ago. This rambunctious doctor on social media, and it's been an absolute honor working with you for the last 5 years. I gotta be honest.
And I appreciate it.
Yeah. So, well, I know some of our listeners, a lot of our listeners, we're now 350 plus episodes in. They may have heard you on a prior podcast. I think you've done 1 or 2, but there's going to be new listeners, and they know nothing about you. So maybe you could just go way, way back and talk a little bit about your origin story. I mean, I don't know how far back you want to go. It's funny, but you can take it far back. I was just talking to somebody, a patient of mine asked me, what's the first memory you have struggling with food?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember being 4 years old, walking away, running away from my mom in the supermarket, going to the ice cream aisle, open up boxes of ice cream at 4 years old, and those popsicle pops, just opening them and eating them in the supermarket at 4. And they
Oh
were like,
wow.
whoa, they were so impressed, they were like, whoa, so maybe you could tell people, start with that question. When was the first time you remember struggling with food? And then tell them about your story, how you sort of, before you transformed your health. A lot of people have seen your before and after. What was that Brian Wiley like?
All right. Well, I also wanted to say, Tro, you also took a chance on me 5 years ago, so I think we've done good. Um,
Yeah,
I
so done good. So let's just put it in perspective. 60,000 pounds lost in our clinic. So done good is an understatement.
okay.
I
Yeah.
think done insanely good. And I got to put this out there because, we're about to publish our results from our employee wellness cohort, and it's an insane amount of weight loss all the way out to 2 years, all the way out 2 years. So
I
it's
can't
we
wait to
have
see it.
done amazing work. Well, you've seen it in real life,
Yeah.
you know.
I like to see it I like to see the final numbers there. And
Yeah, yeah. I can't wait, man. I can't wait. So tell people, because they see you skinny. We call you in the office skinny, you know, uh, and they look at you and they're like, he's got it all together. 15 years, maybe, I don't know. Has it been 15 years you kept your weight off? Something like
it's
that, right?
it will be in January.
Yeah,
So close enough.
15 years, right? So what was before you lost 100 pounds, before you became a health coach, before you became a trainer, you know, um, what was that Brian Wiley like?
Yeah, I think to understand what that Brian Wiley was like, you kind of got to go all the way back. Um, I th- I think when I was a kid, I was a normal sized kid up until I was 9 years old, and I really remember that's when my family, at that time we mostly ate home cooked meals and going out for like pizza, McDonald's, things like that. That was a rare thing. Um, and I just remember I was active, riding my bike, played outside, walked everywhere. But that summer when I was 9 years old, that's kind of when things changed. And what changed was my mom started working and my dad was already putting in long hours at his job. So I ended up getting left with a sitter who didn't cook, and like all those healthy home cooked meals that I used to eat when my mom, stayed at home started getting replaced with fast food. A lot of the processed things came into the house, like the cereal, soda, snack cakes. Your favorite, you just mentioned ice cream. And I don't want to sound old here, like to all the listeners, but that summer, like that's kind of when the microwave kind of started hitting the mainstream in everybody's houses. And then so so I was like one of the I we was gifted a
Back in my
microwave.
day when we walked uphill
Yeah.
both ways to school and with the microwaves and the televisions.
That sounds bad. That sounds horrible. True. It's like I was around when microwaves like came into the household. But honestly, when that microwave came in to the house, like all of a sudden everything became about convenience. And I didn't really realize it at the time, but that summer with all that going on, my weight started to creep up, and that's kind of when my world shifted. And it was mainly when you asked me kind of when not when I had an issue with food, but when I realized I had an issue with my weight was that same summer. And like I said, I'll never forget the day because this is one of the things that's kind of stuck with me all the way, through adulthood was um my dad stopped at a friend's house and I was pretending to be asleep in the back seat of the car. And I I overheard something that's like I said still sticks with me to this day was my my dad's friend looked in the back seat and he said, "Damn, Brian's got fatter than a pig. What are you guys feeding him?" And I just like laid there pretending to be asleep, and shocked. And that was like the first time in my life that I realized that my weight was an issue. And at that in that very moment that I heard that, I was terrified of going back to school. I remember it was only a week away, and I knew how cruel kids were to the other fat kids in school. So all of a sudden, again, for the first time, I was dreading that, just terrified to go back to school. I knew what was going to be waiting for me, like the teasing, the bullying, and it wasn't just at school either. To my surprise, even church, one of the places you thought would be safe from it all, it wasn't. Um, Kids are kids regardless, and the stress of it kind of pushed me deeper into that very thing that was hurting me, and that was the food. Because that's when I realized I was turning to it for comfort, and that was my escape. Um, and this
Did you
continued.
did you realize it back then? I mean, now you talk about it insightfully, but
Mhm.
how old were you then? I mean, I don't, did you realize like I'm stressed out, I'm turning to food, or did you kind of not really know back then?
I can't say that I really knew, but um,
I'm just curious, when was the point where you knew, like looking back, like, oh, that's what I was doing? Like what point was that? I don't mean to interrupt, but
oh no, no. It was probably, I'd say, going probably intermediate school, seventh, eighth grade. Um,
so
I
seventh,
really,
eighth grade, you had insight. You were like, I'm stress eating. I know I'm stress eating.
yeah, and I think I knew that because I would go, I would tell myself I wasn't going to, I knew they were making me overweight, like the foods that I was eating. And I would tell myself, like, after you've been messed with all day at school all week, and it's Friday, the weekend's coming around, and you're getting ready to go home, and you're telling yourself, I'm not going to eat this stuff. I'm going to eat healthy. I'm going to do better. And you don't. Like, you get home and you just start eating it, and you just plop yourself in front of the TV or the video games, and you just kind of zone out, and just eat those foods all weekend, and just kind of block everything out, and you do it all over again the next
So
week.
you were kind of aware back then. I mean, that's not easy for like a 15-year-old, or that's not something that's easy.
Yeah, it's hard but at the same time, you're aware of it, but it it doesn't win. Like, you're trying to change it, but that thought doesn't win. It never won. I didn't have any idea on how to turn it off, you know, stop eating those foods. And um, yeah, that's
And
kind of,
what happens next?
yeah. So I would say, that kind of went on through grade school and intermediate school, and then I think I had one more horrible moment that kind of stuck with me. I've talked about this in the other podcast, but I think it's really important because it was something that stuck with me and was really, really traumatic. And but like I said, out of everything I have dealt with in my journey, probably the worst thing I did experience was that in eighth grade, um, this this principal we had, I was in the lunchroom, and the principal, the one person who should be protecting kids, kind of humiliated me in front of the entire school. I can just remember the kids that day in the lunchroom were they're being extra rowdy, and he had a megaphone, and he walked around screaming it all day. So he's yelling for everybody to shut up, and he's a real classy guy, by the way. So I was walking around the lunchroom trying to find a seat. I don't understand what was going on that day, but there was no seats available. And I'm the one person standing up trying to find a seat. And I guess since he couldn't get the lunchroom under control, like he directed everything that was going on toward me. And he's screaming in the thing. He's calling me moose. He's saying, "Sit down, fat ass." And he's like going over and over and over as I'm panicking, like trying to run around the room, find a spot. And just like the entire lunchroom's like laughing and cutting it up now. And unfortunately, that's the name that stuck with me the rest of the year, in eighth grade. And I said the pain of those experiences, they've stayed with me. Even as you know, in high school, I began to lose, I hit my growth spurt. So I lost weight and I started getting active. And so high school started with a little bit of hope, I guess you'd say. And I was able to maintain that. I think I'd got down to like I ended up being like 6 foot 170 in high school. And but here was the thing, my eating didn't stop. Like the hormones and the activity was kind of keeping
I
everything.
mean, that's such a metabolically active time frame.
Yeah.
10 to 20, your cells are dividing at the most rapid rate. Your mitochondria are multiplying. You are producing hormones. Muscle mass is getting laid. I mean, it is the most forgiving years of your life, and most people, kind of do what you do, and then high school gym class is over,
Mm-hmm.
and they're still eating the donuts, and they're still eating the cereal and the bran muffins and the whole wheat bread and the bananas and the oranges and the, a moderation size Oreos and a moderation size ice creams. And what happens is they wonder why they have fatty liver while they're gaining weight. And it's true. It's like, why? I'm having bran muffins in moderation. I'm having kashi cereal, but you quickly get unhealthy. How quickly after high school did you get unhealthy?
Oh, it was quick because soon as high school was over, life got a lot busier. I wasn't married, but I had kids, and there's my wife now. But marriage, kids, and work, went straight into a sedentary job, and the weight started creeping back up.
What was your first job?
Immediately.
I'm embarrassed. I don't know.
Oh man, the the first job, like that sedentary job I had after high school. I'm embarrassed to say it, True. Like you're gonna make me.
No,
You're
I'll
gonna
tell
make
you
me.
mine. I'll tell you my first job. You're not going to believe it.
You're not gonna believe mine. You're gonna cut the show when I tell you what it is.
You're going to cut the show and I tell you what mine was.
Okay, well I'll
I'll
go
go first.
first.
All right, fine. You go first. I'll
Okay,
go
I'll go
first.
first.
My first job was McDonald's. Well, I worked for my parents. That doesn't count,
Uh-huh.
right? I was doing accounting. I was doing their college work at age 12. That doesn't count. But uh, my first job paid was at McDonald's.
Okay.
I was an employee of the month too at McDonald's. That was
That's
my first job. Can you believe that?
I think I got mine's more shocking, I
Yeah.
believe. Well, I'm gonna tell you, I gotta set it up so it doesn't sound as crazy, but we have a call center here in my city, and I worked in the call center for Victoria's Secret's catalog. So I took orders over the phone. I'm about to sound old again. True, is like that was before there was like online ordering and stuff. There's no you if you wanted something from Victoria's Secret, you had to call the
You had
the
to
catering
call.
catalog, like
Yeah,
the
yeah,
call
yeah.
center.
Yeah, I remember those catalogs from my youth. So,
Oh no, you'll get canceled here in a minute if you
oh
keep going.
man, I was man. If I haven't been canceled already, man, we've talked COVID, we've talked everything, man. If we haven't been canceled, or we're low carb, no processed foods, anti-pharma, not anti-pharma, but questioning
Yeah.
pharma. If we haven't been canceled already, I think we're good. I think Victoria's Secret will be very happy to know in my youth I cherished you know, their their catalog.
But yeah, but that was the first job, true. And I know where I actually wanted to say, can I say something before we kind of move on? Like I
Yeah.
definitely want to get to the other. I think since I just kind of shared this, something I did want to talk about, um, is I'd like to say this just in case there's a lot of people that hear this podcast. Um, I've heard a lot recently, on social media and other platforms that there's kind of a thing going around where it's like we should bring bullying and fat shaming back.
Oh, it's
And
terrible. It's so
and,
terrible.
and I know, and I just want to say I 100% disagree with that. Because for me and almost everyone I know, that only makes the situation worse, and it creates additional stress that doesn't help. Now I do know there are some people that respond well to that kind of thing, but I think for the most part, the majority, it doesn't. And I'm not
No, it
saying
doesn't. It doesn't affect
no.
anybody. Or like I've been seeing some vitriolic posts from people, in the health space, and it makes me sad. You
Yeah.
know, it makes me sad. I saw somebody post a picture of somebody in a handicapped wheelchair who was overweight, and then they compared it to a movie. And it just made me a little sad. And I understand, they're kind of maybe they're thinking they're commenting negatively on society, that society's, but those are people.
Yeah.
I had somebody post a picture of there was an influencer who posted a picture of somebody's like belly hanging out, and that could have been me. And he's like, "This
Hmm.
is the people who say you shouldn't run." And I was like, you don't know who that is. You don't know what they do. I was in, med school, and I exercised pretty much every day in my life, or at least wanted to. Even if I didn't, I was studying, then I mean, I would be right back out there the next day. There was a running joke in my family when we went on vacation. They all knew that I would exercise every day, right? But then they post this picture, and I told him this is despicable, and he took it down. I was happy he took it down, and we've seen I've seen even political memes where they show the heads of the health commissions of the government who are all overweight, and it's like, I get that they're overweight, I get it's a problem, I get that these people um, may need help understanding other elements of policy, but it's not appropriate. Like, it's their
Hmm.
body. Like, you're not them. You don't know what they're dealing with. You don't know what they know, what they don't know, what they do, what they don't do. And thank you for bringing that up, because it's nonsense. I get it every day. I get it and every day on social media. I'm down. At my peak, I had lost 150 pounds. I'm down like 140 pounds now, but after my surgery, after my spinal surgery, I was up 20 pounds from my lowest. I put back 20 pounds. I've lost it since. I've been working hard to be in the gym, and, you know, um, but every day somebody comments on me on social media, like, here's how he looked, last year at a conference. I mean, it's complete nonsense. I mean, I can rise above it, but it is, I think it's unacceptable.
Yeah, I
I
don't
don't
like.
know what, but I went yapping here. What does it make you feel when you see that? I'm glad you brought it up, because this is a huge topic, you know?
Because I just see, like, I said it adds like kind of an extra layer, of stress or guilt to everything, right? It's like, I think when people make posts like that, they want to stand behind that it's for awareness. But I get it. Like, we do need, there's an awareness piece that it does need to be out there. Like, we do need to be aware of it, but not like that. Like, you don't have to shame somebody like that, because that just defeats people. Um, it it makes you think, why bother? And like you said, that some of the people that these things come from, I'm going to try to throw this back to you because I know I'll just say right now I wouldn't. But if you was when you was 350-pound Tro and you was desperately trying to figure things out, and you was like, ooh, I might consider this approach, and that person is like posting things like that, would you have like, you know, considered confiding in them or trying to use their approach? Like I think it's a turn off. Like you're wanting you're kind of bait you're kind
I don't
people are
know. I don't know.
yeah,
I gotta be honest. There's like, I think everybody responds differently. That
yeah,
some people respond with the hand, some people respond with the whip,
right.
and everybody knows what they like. I don't respond to that. I haven't met anybody out of the 1,000 people, plus 1,000 plus, maybe 2,000. I don't know, somewhere between thousands of people we've helped. I haven't met one that shamed themselves into losing weight.
Me
I met
either.
a lot of people who self-forgave themselves into losing weight. I met a lot of people who, understood what they were up against and figured out sort of the lies they've been told and the lies they tell themselves and pick themselves up that way. I never met somebody who shamed themselves or guilted themselves to weight loss. I haven't seen it.
Me either. And I think that I just thought about this for a second. I think for me, I wouldn't try to follow that advice because I would see something like that and think that person does not get me. They can't relate to me if they're saying those kind of things, because being that person who was like fat shamed and bullied and teased and all that kind of stuff, I was never able to do that to people. I don't think I could ever go on social media and post things like that and expect people to respond to me. Like I don't know. I just can't get it. Anybody that's walked those shoes, I don't think there's very many people who's walked in those shoes that can then turn and be that person that used to make fun of them and bully them and all those things.
I mean, I look, I can't do it. Uh, those type of posts, I can understand. I'll tell you, there was one time where I made a post in a similar vein that I regretted, right? That I regretted. And it was a post during COVID. And somebody had landed in ICU. And the post from the newspaper was, a perfectly healthy young person, with COVID ends up in the ICU. And this person was clearly overweight, obese. Um, neck was very large, definitely. I mean, if I had to guess, had sleep apnea. Looked very unwell, Um, in fact, in the picture, you could see skin tags, right? Which is a
Mhm.
sign of insulin resistance. And I'm looking at that picture, I'm like, this person has metabolic disease. Yeah, yeah, it's just not diagnosed. So I had made a post. I said, they call this perfectly healthy, but it's likely not. It's likely COVID, people with COVID who end up in the hospital, it turns out had high blood sugars, metabolic syndrome, insulin resistance. And I immediately took it down. I looked at it, I'm like, what if this person sees this?
Right.
What if they see it? And I'm like, I just don't want to live with that. I'm not trying to target them. I'm trying to target the people who are saying this is healthy, and I took it down because I was like, wait, how would that person feel? And I luckily have good people around me like yourself and Amy Igus, our program director who kind of we all keep each other in that mission, and
Mhm.
don't let we don't let each other forget, where we came from. But you're absolutely right. I take a slight pleasure in bullying all the bullies. I got to be honest with you. I'm sure you've noticed me on social media.
Yeah, a little bit.
The people out there who say, "Oh, just count your calories and try harder," and uh, that make disparaging comments. I mean, I'm coming for them. I mean, Jillian Michaels, she blocked me. you know.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm with you, and I thank you for bringing that up
Yeah.
because it's so important. You know.
Yeah, and I just wanted to get out there, and I kind of, it's almost like a trend that's gaining some steam. It looks like I've seen it more and more recently, but yeah, I think I left off where, yeah, after high school, we was talking about that's kind of when I thinned out and was doing all that weight, and everything kind of creeped back up on me afterward. And I would say probably just a few years after high school, I did get married and um, had my second daughter, and I was doing the plumbing thing, so now my job was a little more active, and my weight started kind of stabilizing, but now I was like on a slower creep, right? But age, I still remember these numbers. So like at age 21, that I was up to 210 from that 170. So I had that like really quick when I had that sedentary job, that was a quick like 40 pounds. Um, but then by 25, I was up to like 230. And up until that point, I tried most of those mainstream approaches you were just talking about. But I only had like minimal results, and I could never maintain it because, like I said, all they did was restrict, and they never kind of addressed like the hunger and cravings. And as we all know, willpower is only going to take us so far. And yeah, so just kept kind of floundering back and forth, and tried the Weight Watchers, calories in, calories out. Um, and I would just crash, then I'd binge, and before I knew it, I was always heavier than when I started any of these approaches. Um, but yeah, it's just a back and forth kind of yo-yo dieting, and
But what did it feel like? You remember what it felt like?
like the hunt.
Like no, no, not just like your body being bigger, always being hungry. Like, what do the joints feel like? What did the energy feel like? What was the mood like? What was the marriage like? What was it all like back then? I mean, your kids were younger, right? They
Yeah,
were, what, like less than 10 or, you know?
yeah, and I'd say I really didn't really notice anything till I was 30. 30 is when it really started. I started feeling all that, right? Um, Tired all the time, wanting to take naps. But I think the most important thing was when I turned 30, when you're in your 20s, you think 30 is old. And that's when I decided, okay, I'm gonna get serious about my health. Um, because now I got the two young daughters. I was getting older, and at that point, I was like at the worst shape of my life. Went and got me a doctor, joined the YMCA, worked out 3 times a week, and I did my best to get healthier, and just just get my energy back and everything, and it just was not working. And there's another bad moment, right? You kind of talked about how did I feel? What did it feel like? I think the low point there in my 30s is, like you said, my kids were younger, and I would take them to the park, and before I'd run around, I would chase them on the playground equipment. That was our thing. Dad take them to the playground, and we'd run through the slides and obstacle courses and all that stuff. I remember right before, I started to find my low carb journey, I there was a time I took them to the park, and I took them to the park, they were running around, and I was sitting on the bench, um, just watching them play. And they started going, come on, come play with us, come chase us. And I couldn't. Like I didn't have the energy. I didn't feel good. I just felt like crap. Then that made me feel worse, right? Not being able to chase my kids around the playground equipment.
I mean, I knew exactly what that was like. Just miserable, miserable. Uh, huffing and puffing, trying to keep up with them.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm curious, when was the enough is enough point? At
The
what
enough,
point? Yeah,
the enough, the enough point. That
enough,
was
the enough is enough point. Like
30. I was 34, almost 35. And I'd went, I'd been going to the same doctor for those 5 years. Um, and I was going there for my annual checkup. And that particular checkup, I'd hit my highest weight and I was like 265. Um, my blood pressure, my blood sugar, my cholesterol, all those numbers finally crossed over into the red. And my doctor just said to me, Brian, you've been my patient for 5 years, and every year you come here, you're worse off than the year before. And I think we should really consider, medication, at least for your cholesterol, blood sugar, and blood pressure. And and she told me that true. It scared me to death. And I said to myself, dang, these are all meds my grandparents are on, and I'm only 35 years old. And in that moment, I felt like I was truly running out of time, and I was only 35.
so, there's a lot of fear.
Lot of fear.
Yeah.
Not the
What
probably the
and
scariest.
what changed, man? What changed at that point? So like you've been trying, it wasn't like you weren't trying.
Exactly. I in that moment I told her to give me one more year, and I said if I come back here next year and I'm still on this path, I'll take the meds. I'll do whatever you say, but I wasn't ready to give up. I just refused to kind of let this beat me without at least trying one more time. And again, I left that doctor's office. I didn't have a plan. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I went home, told my wife, which she was an RN at the time, and I was scared to go home and tell my RN wife that I just told the doctor I wasn't going to take medication for all these things I was dealing with. But she was she was dealing with the weight issue herself, and she said, "Hey, next month we're doing this Biggest Loser competition at work." And I was like, "Well, what are you going to do? Because I got to do something too. I'll do it with you." And somehow she had two pieces of paper. I've said this many times. I don't even know where she got them, but she had two pieces of paper, and it was basically the Atkins induction phase. So basically, it was like keep your carbs at 20, eat this, not that. And that's when it started. I started in January of 2009. Um, and the weight started coming off in the first few weeks. So I'd say about the first month or so, I'd lost like 12 pounds. I was skeptical at first, but I stuck with it because I was feeling better than I had in years, and I was still highly motivated, from that doctor's visit. So as those months went by, the weight loss slowed, but it was steady. And by the time I went back to that doctor's appointment for my next checkup, I was down about 70 pounds. I was feeling better, but most importantly, the biggest thing of all, the piece that I was needing and wanted was all my labs came back normal. And that was like that final piece I needed, because for the first time in my life, I kind of felt like I found something that worked and was sustainable. And I know I'm just like glossing over like that whole
Well, no,
all those months.
it's amazing, like, that this pivotal moment for you, is basically what now you get to offer up to other people, you
Yeah.
know. I can't tell you how many people we've talked to have said Brian and Dr. Laura's intro class is what got them started. You know, I think, what a story there, where you struggle your whole life, and you find this way, and you then get to manifest it and turn it into, a superpower for others. I'm curious, early on in that first year, what were the biggest struggles you had, and what are the tips you have for people in that place, who are just starting or just thinking about getting started or just restarting,
Yeah.
what are your tips for those people in that place, that same crappy place you were back then, where you tried everything, maybe even tried low carb or keto or the internet version,
Yeah.
and you're now like recommitting.
Yeah, I think the biggest advice that I can give is, I say this all the time, but it's, you just got to stick with it and be consistent, and you got to kind of pre just prepare, um, get what you need, find out what your problem people, places, times, situations, and foods are, and try to put defenses in place for them. But I think the biggest thing is to know that you're not going to be perfect, but you can be consistent. And as long as you're being consistent, like you're moving toward those goals, and you're going to eventually get there. You're going to figure things out. Um, but you just got to stick with it. And I think for me, my situation is a little different because I didn't have a lot of information out there. There wasn't like low carb replacement foods, keto recipes, and all that kind of stuff out there. So I fell hard a few times. And I think the other thing is to know that there's going to be slip ups. Again, you're not going to be perfect. Things are going to happen. You just kind of got to kind of analyze that situation and say what went wrong, why it went wrong, and do better the next time. Don't look at it as a failure. Just kind of look at it as a learning experience, and just keep moving forward.
You know, one of those things that I think, you know, it's so important to understand is like get out of that self-blame
Mhm.
cycle, and that you need to do better, you need more discipline. That's a trap.
Yeah,
Anytime you're like, I wish I did better, the tip I wish I knew, was anytime you think to yourself, I wish I could have done better, actually come up with an idea to do better. Should you have eaten before you went to that social event?
yeah,
Should you have brought a seltzer with you in case so you had something to sip on? Should you have brought chips with you, or pork rinds or quest chips, or, cut up vegetables with you to that place so you had an appetizer to eat, at that barbecue. Um, it's just those little things. Don't ever tell yourself, I should have done better. And that's the
yeah,
beauty of this, intro to low carb course, is it walks you through the science, and then it takes you through to like putting actions into place, which is, it's the ultimate service we can give. People don't realize what a privilege we have, to help people reclaim their lives for a living. you know I mean, we are so lucky, in my opinion. uh,
definitely.
we're so lucky. I'm curious, so that was 15 years ago you started with Atkins, and you know and since then there was the you know Gary Taubes' book, and then Nina Teicholz's book, and Volek and Eric Westman's, and the keto craze, and then the carnivore craze, and then the keto bastardization phase, which is where we're in now.
Yeah.
Um, has your diet really changed much?
I've
As it
tried
was.
all those things, but I can tell you at the end of the day, I kind of fell back to kind of like the old school Atkins in a way. The only thing I would say that I switched up is I knew the book that I started with, Dr. Atkins had put you at 20 grams of carbs per day, and 12 of them had to be from vegetables. I don't do that. Like I'm probably about 30, 40 carbs a day, somewhere around there, and I don't get 12 grams of carbs from the vegetables. So I don't really prioritize the vegetables like they did in the old one like that, but I do prioritize the protein. Um, but no, I would say I went through all the phases. I did keto, did carnivore. Um, I never did paleo, but it all kind of did all those things, and they all came back to kind of what I had started doing in the first place.
Yeah. I mean, so you never convinced yourselves that mainlining, initially interesting when I started, I was doing a lot of bars and stuff like that. And I remember you
Mhm.
telling me, Tro, those are going to settle down. You're not going to use them too much. And I went from doing two, protein bars a day to doing maybe two protein bars a week, a couple months later, then two protein bars a year, and I remember I used to buy a box a week, and then it became a box a month, and then it became a box never.
Yeah.
So I think, my diet's changed over time. It sounds like yours, you were solid all throughout, but
I
my diet changed a bit.
I was.
Any other tips you learned like recently? Any new, maybe a patient you saw that taught you something, or anything lately you've seen that sort of reinvigorated, and maybe something you forgot. I put
It's
you on the spot, man.
I kind of it's something you mentioned actually, because you had asked me how my diet changed, and I don't know, I didn't make that connection at first till you just told me that. But I will say now, I think the biggest change is when I am having a stressful moment, or my sleep was bad, or for whatever reason my hunger and cravings is extremely high that day. I'll do the protein bar. I'll do the Quest cookie, the chips, whatever the replacement is, right? Um, I will go have that, and I won't feel guilty about it. And I'll just kind of take care of that in that moment, where before I didn't have that luxury when I first started, but now I do. So I just think I use those as outs now.
Yeah,
Um,
me too. But then immediately, like the minute I can, I get them back. I get them back out. I use them as outs, but then I get them out as quick as I can.
yeah, definitely got to treat them as an emergency situation, or an occasional treat, something like that. But yeah, I would say that's probably the biggest difference I didn't have when I started was um, we have a lot more options now that we can lean on when we're
It's
having a rough.
crazy. It's crazy. I mean, look, when Duncan Hines starts making keto stuff, and every supermarket's got keto bread. All I could tell people now is be super cautious.
Yeah,
Read it 3 times. Read it 3 times, because the ingredients, don't trust it. If it says keto, don't trust it. Just take a look. And actually, it's a great thing. Go to the intro to low carb class, figure out how to read a label.
yeah.
Figure out what ingredients to look for. Um, it's been Brian, it's been, just about 45 minutes, almost an hour. Any any parting words of wisdom, and tell us where people can find you, people can get you, and how they can track you down.
I'm mainly most active on Twitter, and it's just Brian Wiley underscore. On Instagram, I'm trying to get a little more active on there. True, I'm really trying, but it's I don't even remember my username on there. True.
We'll get it. We'll put all the
All
handles
right.
in. Guys, you can find them on the Toward Health app also. And I will put the link up to the intro course with Dr. Laura and Brian. And that's starting up in just the next couple of weeks. Brian, quickly, what do your meals look like? What was for dinner yesterday before we go?
Yesterday I had
Yeah.
green beans and a ribeye, and it was probably 1.5 pound. Ribeye is a thick boy, so
One and a half pound. That's pretty good. I had two New York strips, probably a pound and a half of meat, and some bacon. That was my meal. That was
yeah,
my meal.
that's good. I definitely it looks like that most days, right? It's usually a nice big helping of protein and kind of a side of vegetables if I got it. Um, Eggs, things like that. But
Chicken, Greek yogurt. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
all that
Amen,
stuff.
man. Amen.
Jim, and I really enjoyed this, and I do want people to know that if there is one takeaway, Tro, that if anybody's listening to this that it hasn't done low carb or they're just out there listening, right? I just think biggest takeaway is that this isn't a fad. Um, Low carb is sustainable. It is a long-term solution that can change your life. I've seen it work for me and countless others working here with Tro and the team for the past 5 years. I see it happen every day, and I'm seeing people sustain it throughout the year since I've been here.
I mean, look, 10 years I've been doing this. Calcium score 0 throughout. No, carotids are completely fine. Knock on wood. Countless people. We published, cardiovascular risk decreasing. We published triglycerides going from 800 to 100. We've published blood sugars improving from A1C of 11 to 6. Um, I mean, it's the data's there, and we have 2-year data with 15% weight loss coming out very soon. I mean, if there's anything I think we do well and we do different, it's help people sustain a diet. We tackle food addiction, metabolic disease, and we try to actually help patients. And it's just awesome. We have an amazing, amazing team. It's a pleasure to work with you, Brian. You've inspired me over the number of years we worked together, and even before.
I
And
appreciate it.
I'm just every day I wake up, I'm invigorated to go crush it.
Yeah, me
Tired,
too.
tired, man, but we get to do an amazing job. I mean, we get to transform corporations now come to us and say, Brian and Tro, make our employees healthy, right? Which is such an amazing opportunity. And now we're on our fifth corporation. It's just this is amazing. We get to help the public. We get to reach people just with this podcast. We can put on free courses that they can come to and just get started. I mean, we are damn lucky, and I'm lucky to work with you, and I'm excited. I'm excited about this intro class.
Me too, man, because
Yeah.
I think it's very important. I think
100 people already signed up, so get ready for a packed Zoom room.
I'm hope I hope we get a lot more
Yeah.
in that time. I just think we cover a lot of bases in that course. I think we really do a good job of providing everything you need to get started and think about and be successful. I know, Dr. Laura, she dives deep that first week in the why behind why low carb works. Um, she goes into the science. She handles that side of it. She does it very well. Um, like I said, we focus on those strategies and things that help you progress throughout the whole journey. It's very informative, and I wished I had something like that when I started, um, to kind of guide me.
Yeah, and to be honest, Brian, there was a big player in the space, and I'm glad they moved out of the way because, now we can offer a free course, you know, and I honestly, we do it better. We've published the data, so I got a competitive spirit. I want to take on the world. I'm happy to have you join me, and we just get to help people for a living, which is the most amazing job. I got to be honest, most amazing job.
Very fulfilling.
Yep. Brian, have a good night. I know you're out here late night. Appreciate you coming on the Low
That's
Carb
fine.
MD podcast. For the people who are listening, if you're listening to this and you enjoyed it, support us on Patreon. This podcast has been not for profit, no commercials, no interest, nobody sponsored. We've said no to over $100,000 of sponsorships so we could be interest free. So if you're listening to it and you enjoy it, go make a donation, lowcarbmd.com, and we appreciate your support.
If you enjoy the show, please consider supporting us on Patreon by going to lowcarbmd.com.